eventually I'm going to relate this to the two core questions that I talked about last week. Am I safe? And am I loved? In almost every case, at least for me, but I see this in other people as well, the desire to feel better is either to feel more safe or to feel more loved in our lives. That's the motivation. That's what's driving those decisions. And if we're not aware of that, then what we're going to do is what I did. It's the example that I gave in the audiobook tonight. This is a quote from chapter 5, and where I talked about leasing a car when I first moved to LA. If instead of looking outside myself to find a way to feel acceptable, I had changed who I thought I was to someone who was acceptable no matter what car I drove, no matter where I lived, or no matter where I worked, or no matter what clothing I wore, or no matter who I hung out with, or whatever, I could have saved myself a lot of heartache, financial and otherwise. And I thought I had to go out and lease a fancy car so I would be acceptable. So that's what this idea of fitting in is all about. And that was so I would feel, again, am I safe? Am I loved? So being acceptable means, oh, I'm loved. And I went out and spent a lot of money on a car that I really couldn't afford. So I could feel acceptable. So I felt like I could fit in. Whereas all I really needed to do was do the inner work that we've been talking about, to change my idea about myself, to see myself differently, to begin to love myself when I least like who I'm being, to be nicer to myself, to be more compassionate, to move from being my own worst enemy to my own best friend. When I'm my own best friend, I don't go overspend on a car or whatever, whatever it is that I'm spending money on, or I don't say yes to situations that are really not good for me or healthy for me or not in my best interests when I'm my own best friend, when I love myself no matter who I think I am in that moment. So in anticipation of tonight's workshop, I did a little digging in the archives. And so I just wanted to share with you, that's the car. And the girl on the car is a whole other story, but that was also about feeling better, trust me. And actually the photo on the left, I think on your left, I actually went to the Academy Awards one year. I think it was in 1997, which was one of the cool, I worked in the entertainment business, the film business, and it was so cool, it was so exciting to go. And it was great, and the car was great, and the girl was great, but none of that was the problem. The problem was what was going on in here. And I was trying to fix all of that. I was trying to feel better by having the fancy address. I lived in Beverly Hills for 17 years, and that was my way to feel important or to feel impressive, and I used that as my business address. So my letterhead said, Beverly Hills, California. I bought the car. I did all the things outside of me to try and feel better without addressing the negative feelings that were inside of me. The feelings of not being good enough, the feelings of not being lovable, the feeling that people were not going to like me. So I had to do all this other stuff to compensate. All right? So I don't want you guys to do that. I don't want anybody to do that. If nothing else, you could save yourself some money. Trust me on that one. All right? So let's get one last look at that. I got to go through a lot of old photos today, which it was actually brought up a lot of feelings. This is like 25 years ago, 30 years ago maybe. And so that's a whole other thing, brought up a lot of feelings. But here's the good news. I love that guy. I love him. He was a mess in so many ways I can't begin to tell you, and I can still love him and have compassion and understanding now. I didn't realize what was running my life. I didn't realize how much pain I was in. I didn't realize how, I found all these dysfunctional ways to mood alter, to feel better, and I had no idea of the the negative thinking and the pain and all that stuff that was driving all that dysfunctional behavior. Again, there's nothing wrong with having a nice car. There's nothing wrong with going to the Academy Awards. That's all great, but when I'm doing it for the wrong reason, and here's the thing, it never works. You know, it may feel good for a little while. I'm going to talk about this when I talk about, again, about compulsive addictive behavior. It feels good in the moment, but you know what? Eventually it feels bad, and eventually it feels worse. So instead of feeling better, I eventually felt worse, and I didn't know what was going on.